One morning in Big Cypress, a researcher walked into a stretch of pine flatwood about the size of a football field and started counting dead snakes. She stopped at 23. Burmese pythons. Young ones, full-grown ones, a 16-footer among them. Nothing had been eaten. The coils were intact. The muscle was intact. But every single one of them was missing its head. There were no hunters in that zone. No traps. The nearest permitted removal area was 11 miles away. She checked. That same season, the news out of South Florida was all good. The Conservancy of Southwest Florida pulled 177 pythons out of Collier County in a single stretch, more than 1,700 since 2013. Record numbers. And here is what almost nobody says out loud. After 40 years of this, the python population in South Florida has never once gone down, not by counting, not by hunting, not by anything we control. Whatever left 23 headless bodies on that ground had been doing it a long time before anyone noticed. To the one animal in this swamp that, for 4 decades, has had nothing on earth to fear, it took 4 years and 11,000 hours of camera footage to find out what it was. And the answer is not one animal. It's 3. Burmese pythons were never native here. They came in through the exotic pet trade, released or escaped, and did the one thing nobody planned for. They stayed, they bred, and they took the place over, as if it had always been theirs. A full-grown one reaches 16 feet. If one were lying 10 feet from you right now, in daylight, you would not see it. Experienced hunters walk within a few steps of them and keep walking. But what makes it dangerous isn't the size. It's that nothing here has ever learned to fear it. In the evolutionary memory of every native animal in this swamp, the Burmese python does not exist. And when you have no fear of something, you don't run. You stand there and you become the meal. There is no window in that body where it's weak. Or at least, that's what everyone believed. Here's what 40 years of that looks like. If you drove the park road through here in 1995, you'd have counted raccoons on the shoulder for an hour. Drive it tonight and you'll count none. Raccoon numbers in the core of the invasion have dropped by more than 99%. Bobcats by nearly 90%. And this is not a scenery problem. The Everglades is the largest natural water filtration system in America. 9 million people in this state turn on a tap and drink what comes out of it. What's vanishing is the living machinery that keeps that water moving. Florida fought back hard. The elimination program launched in 2017, and more than 14,000 snakes have been pulled out since. And the population hasn't moved. Because one female can lay up to 100 eggs in a single clutch. The men and women who do this for a living will tell you the same thing. They walk the same levees for 12 hours in 90-degree heat, come back with 2 snakes, and know that what's out there is measured in the hundreds of thousands. They aren't losing because they're bad at it. They're losing because the math was never on their side. Dr. Elena Marsh had been running python surveys at Big Cypress for 7 years. And in 7 years, her numbers had done exactly one thing. They went up. Then the 8th season came in wrong. In 3 specific monitoring zones, detections dropped. Not dramatically. If you laid the graph on a table, you'd need a finger on the line to see it. But it was down, and it had never been down. The next season did the same, and the one after that. 4 consecutive seasons, the same quiet decline, in exactly the same 3 zones, while every other zone in the preserve kept climbing. Her first theory was disease. It was the obvious one. She sent tissue from 9 carcasses out for pathology and waited 11 weeks. Everything came back clean. Whatever was killing these snakes wasn't making them sick. It was hunting them. So she started eliminating. No new hunting permits issued in those zones. She checked. No hurricane, no hard freeze, no fire in 4 seasons. She checked. No change in water levels, no change in access, no change in her own methods. She checked. 3 months to prove that nothing she could measure was responsible, which left exactly one possibility, something she wasn't measuring. And that is when she found the 23. They were inside one of the 3 declining zones, Fourth season of the decline, 94 degrees at 7 in the morning, and the air doesn't move out there. The ground is half water. You don't find things in Big Cypress. Big Cypress lets you find them. She had a body count and no killer. So she went back to the camera trap archive, and this time she wasn't tracking the pythons at all. She was watching what moved around them. That is where the 11,000 hours went. And in them, she found 3 species doing 3 things that had never been recorded anywhere in the scientific literature. The first clip made her rewind it twice. A bobcat. A bobcat in the Everglades is not at the top of anything. It's a victim. In the areas hit hardest, bobcat numbers have fallen by nearly 90%. They hunt rabbits and rodents, and they avoid anything bigger than they are, which is nearly everything. An adult bobcat weighs between 15 and 30 pounds. The python it was walking toward weighed 4 times that and could have killed it in under a minute. The cat stopped at the edge of the nest. It didn't sniff and wander off. It stood still and read the scene. The placement of the nest, the position of the eggs, the angle of the female's head. Then it went in. No rush, no panic, lifting eggs out one at a time. Then the female turned around. The bobcat looked straight at her and did not run. It started moving with her. Sideways, never backward, always just outside effective striking range, eyes locked on the snake's head. Every time the python shifted, the cat shifted with it. It never let itself get cornered. It never gave her the angle. In the end, it was the python that quit. She left her own nest. Ian Bartoszek, a biologist with the Conservancy of Southwest Florida who reviewed footage of this behavior, put it about as plainly as a scientist can. Nothing in the literature prepares you for it. And by 2025, it had escalated. A 25-pound cat killed a 52-pound python, dragged it into the brush, and came back to feed on it over several days. Which tells you something important about the 23. A bobcat that kills a python eats it. It caches the body and strips it down over a week. The snakes on that ground had not been touched. Whatever killed them wanted one thing off each animal and left thousands of pounds of meat lying in the sun. So where does a bobcat learn to raid a nest like that? Not from its mother. There's no precedent in the species, not from instinct. Bobcats never evolved alongside Burmese pythons. Marsh ran the numbers that night. 1 cat, 1 nest, 1 season. Even if every bobcat in the preserve were doing this, it wasn't enough. Not close. And there was something else in her data she couldn't place. Part of the decline wasn't happening in the flatwoods at all. It was happening in the water, which made no sense. Burmese pythons are not aquatic animals. There was no reason for anything in the waterways to be touching this population. Then she pulled the shoreline cameras. 4:52 in the morning. 7 otters coming up the bank in single file. They don't stop to sniff. They don't circle. They go straight to a spot in the mud they have clearly been to before. 9 minutes later, the nest is gone and the water is empty again. 60 to 100 eggs. Under 10 minutes. Otters were on nobody's list. They eat fish. And like the bobcats, they've been on the losing end of this invasion. Their pups taken when they get separated from the group. This was a species enduring pythons, not working them. And when the eggs have already hatched, the group doesn't come at a young snake from one side. They hit from multiple angles at once, herding it into narrower water before pulling it under. Same technique they use on fish applied to something bigger and slower. A hatchling python is under 2 feet long and a poor swimmer. Where otter density is high, first-year survival of python hatchlings drops below 15%. Where there's little otter activity, it runs between 60 and 70. That's the difference between a population that grows and one that gets worn down at the root before it can establish. Florida's elimination program, hundreds of trained hunters and years of experience, takes a few dozen adult snakes on a good day. One family group of otters can erase an entire next generation in 10 minutes, with no budget, no organization, and no press releases. But there's a hard ceiling on it. Otters take eggs and hatchlings. An adult python weighing 60, 80, 100 pounds is completely beyond them. So Marsh had 2 answers, and neither one fit. Bobcats work alone, and they eat what they kill. Otters can't touch an adult, and the 23 snakes on that stretch of ground were not eggs and were not hatchlings. She had been watching the wrong hours of footage, so she went back and started with the files nobody reviews, the night files. So where that leaves us: eggs, taken by a cat that shouldn't be able to; hatchlings, taken by an animal nobody put on the list; and 23 adult snakes on one piece of ground, still unexplained. A dark shape moving through the sawgrass at 2 a.m. Not a bobcat. The gait was wrong. Not an otter. This was on dry land. She zoomed in on an animal that had never been on anyone's watch list. A coyote. You've seen this animal. You've driven past it. 25 to 35 pounds, standing on a shoulder at dusk looking like it has nowhere to be. It appears in exactly 0 python management reports and has no business anywhere near the largest snake in North America. But the footage showed it wasn't confronting the python at all. It was waiting. Remember what I told you at the start. There is no window in that body where it's weak. That turned out to be wrong. There are 3. The first opens after a large meal. Blood flow goes to digestion, muscle strength drops hard, and the ability to constrict is nearly gone for hours. The snake lies there looking normal, and it cannot answer. The second opens during incubation. The female coils tight around her clutch, facing one direction, and her side-set eyes leave a blind spot behind her head she cannot cover. The third opens during shedding. A membrane goes over the eyes and vision drops to almost nothing for days. She moves slow, reacts slow, and navigates by smell. The coyotes had learned to recognize all 3, and the skulls proved it. When researchers examined them, the damage wasn't random. The punctures were consistent, same place, same angle, carcass after carcass. A single bite delivered from behind the head, 30 to 45 degrees off the midline, directly inside the blind spot the snake's own vision creates. One bite, then retreat before the animal can turn. The brain is the most nutrient-dense part of a python's body. That's why they take only the head. Not because the rest isn't edible, but because it's the highest reward for the least time spent inside reach of something that can kill you. Get in. Take what you need. Get out. And that is why 23 pythons were lying whole on that ground, uneaten, untouched, and missing their heads. No coyote population anywhere on Earth has ever been recorded hunting this way. They did not bring it with them from Texas or Georgia. It was invented right here, by animals that tried, failed, adjusted, and eventually found something that worked. And then it spread. One succeeded. Others watched. They copied. They refined. That is the answer to the question the bobcat left open. Not genes. Not instinct. Learning passed animal to animal. Scientists call it cultural transmission. Crows in one town learn to drop nuts onto roads for cars to crack, and it spreads through that population and no other. Orcas learn to beach themselves to take seals, then teach it to their calves. The evidence is in the curve. Headless carcasses in those zones climbed steadily from 2021 to 2023. Not a spike. A smooth, continuous rise. Random chance doesn't draw that line. Knowledge moving through a community does. Bobcats take the eggs and drive off the females. Otters erase the hatchlings before they can swim well enough to escape. Coyotes wait for the biological windows and take the adults. Eggs, hatchlings, adults. There is no stage in a Burmese python's life where at least one of these 3 isn't hunting it, and nobody planned a second of it. No coordination between a bobcat, an otter, and a coyote. 3 species, each solving its own problem, together producing what 40 years of organized effort could not. Now, the size of this. There are still somewhere between 100,000 and 300,000 pythons out there, and their reproductive capacity hasn't changed. 3 zones inside one preserve is a rounding error against that. Nobody should stop hunting. Nobody should cut a single dollar from removal. But that's not what changed. What changed is the direction. For 40 years, every arrow pointed one way. Now, in 3 places, it doesn't. And nobody made that happen. 9 million people in this state turn on a tap and drink what comes out of that system. It doesn't have a spokesperson. It doesn't have a budget. But for the first time in 40 years, it isn't only losing. If we spent less time counting what we can remove and more time watching what's already happening inside the system, how much of this would we have seen 10 years ago? Right now, somewhere in Big Cypress, a bobcat is standing at the edge of a nest, working out the angles. Otters are coming up a bank in single file toward a spot in the mud, and a coyote is out in the sawgrass at 2 in the morning, doing something no coyote anywhere else on Earth has ever been recorded doing. Nobody taught them. Nobody paid them. Nobody is watching most of it. It's just happening. So here's the question I want you to answer down in the comments. Should Florida keep spending millions on removal? Or should that money go into studying what these 3 animals are already doing for free? I read every one of them. And if this changed the way you see the Everglades, send it to someone who needs to know. Thanks for watching to the end.